20. All right. So that's a pretty bleak outlook, is it? Well, it depends on us. If we wake up and engage, I'll be more optimistic. But I gotta say, General Flynn who's an expert at this, working on countries and switching countries, flipping countries from being, one type to another. That's called fifth generation warfare. He says that there's not enough pain yet, not enough people waking up. So really, that's job one for us, is to form our local teams and wake the people up. But anyway, so where do we go from here? Well, what's wrong with our elections is that they're centrally controlled in every state. I've been telling everybody this for 4 years now. It's enough that, I like what Stalin says. He says it's enough that the people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. It's the people who count the votes, they decide everything. And I think that was true in his day with that technology, but I think there's a new technology today. My version of this is whoever touches the machines last wins. Because if you're not in control of what's happening in all that electronic stuff, someone else is, and you need to take back control. So to take back our country, we got to get rid of the machines, perform our elections with our own 2 hands and our own 2 feet. And what do I mean by machines? I don't just mean that thing you put your ballots through. We got registration systems, we got voter roll systems, we got things that complete ballots and count ballots and tabulate and report. There's so many things. I've been just telling everybody, we get rid of all that stuff. We got to go back to the way we did it. All paper, no machines. Voting Amish, all paper, no machines. And by the way, that's the way they do it in Europe, and they do it in one day. It's over. And people trust it. Well, we don't trust our own elections. We've got to vote Amish. And I always show that picture of Nellie voting Amish. She voted Amish in the 2020 primary, proudly wearing her Vote Amish shirt. So the question is how do we get to there? That is our goal. We want to take back our elections. But is that really our goal? I don't think so. I think that's Normandy for us. In the election integrity movement, taking back control of our elections is important, but that's only Normandy, because then you got to fix your culture. We got to fix the legislature. I showed you how messed up it is. So there's a lot more to it. So even that is only one goal towards our long-term goal. So what do we do next? Well, we got to remember that we're the government. We got to be the Constitution. And when I first wrote the 7 steps, the strategy, I was basically focusing on elections, and I was gathering all the wisdom that was working for fixing our elections. But I didn't realize at the time what I was really doing was teaching people how to be the government again. Lo and behold, being the government, we can fix our elections. Awesome. So anyway, what we have to remember is that America is an experiment in self-government. I just want to quote myself, sorry. We've forgotten that we the people are the sovereign. For too long, we've been paying other people to teach our children, to run our governments, and to manage our elections. And how is that working for us? Not too well. Our Constitution makes us the sovereigns. We are the kings, and we're a republic, not a democracy, which means that we select people to represent us and to serve our interests. We've forgotten this. We, the people, are the ones responsible, and we need to start acting like it, and we're not. We've been disengaging from politics. We've been letting other people manage it. You know what? Plato said one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is you end up being governed by your inferiors. And boy, oh boy, are we in that case. I love what Will Rogers says. There are people running our governments who shouldn't be allowed to play with matches. The average guy on the street, I think, would be a better government servant than the ones we have in office. And we didn't get there overnight. That's decades of apathy, decades of us not being involved. We have to be the government again. We have to start being the government. Now, one of the ways I woke up is reading this book by Chris Ann Hall, Sovereign Duty. She points out it's our sovereign duty to be the government. We are the sovereigns. We are the kings, which makes us responsible. And so it's time to do our sovereign duty. No one's coming to save us. We're the people we're waiting for. And I've met a lot of people on the road, but one of my favorites in California is Urson Russell. And he has a saying that I've been quoting all around the country. He says, we need to learn to reintegrate our civic duties into our normal lifestyles. Not everybody can do what Dr. Frank did for the last 4 years. I was on the road almost 25 out of 30 days every month, traveling the country. Not everybody can do that. We got jobs, we got families. We have to do our civic duty, but we need to integrate it into our normal life. Everybody has a civic duty. What are those civic duties? Let's engage them. And if everybody does their little bit, we'll take care of our government. We'll self-govern. And that's what we need to be doing. And we're not. Okay. Trump may be our chosen leader and God's chosen leader, but Trump cannot make America great again.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
This is him in 2017 saying, we're giving you back the government, guys. And where were we? We were AWOL. We were at the B2. We didn't take that opportunity. We blew that. So guess what? This time, it's up to us. We wasted our chance in 2016. 2024 may be our last chance. We got to step up. Guys, we are at war. And it's called fifth generation warfare. General Flynn's been telling us about it for decades. We've just not been listening. We got to step up. So I've been studying war, and I've been reading Sun Tzu pretty regular. General Flynn asked me, recommended that I do that, and man, it's really improved my tactics around the country. Let me just read some of it. The skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. Guess what, guys? There are skillful leaders taking over our country without firing a single shot, and they are well studied in Sun Tzu. This guy, Yuri Bezmenov, who defected from Russia 40 years ago, told us exactly what was going to happen. And 40 years ago, let me just read this. A former KGB agent named Yuri Bezmenov claimed in 1984 that Russia had a long-term goal of ideologically subverting the U.S. He described the process as a great brainwashing that has 4 basic stages. The first stage, he said, is called demoralization, which would take about 20 years to achieve. And we can go through those steps, but that's another talk. The point is, Bezmenov told us everything was going to be happening to us, and we're right on schedule. Trevor Loudon, I saw him give a talk recently in California. He says we're 80% of the way. We're following the agenda. Guys, we are at war. We're losing our country. We got to wake up. We have to deal with it. Or the pain's just going to keep getting worse, and hopefully at some point we'll wake up. But with Flynn recently, and he said, this is him, I quoted him, he says, I don't know a more serious way to express this. And he held it on his hand like this, and he said, the situation is grave. If you haven't seen his new movie, guys, you got to see it. It's very powerful. It shows you the tyranny of lawfare against the citizen, and you need to see that. It's like the lawfare against Tina Peters. This is where I think a lot of grassroots people like me blew it at the beginning, and a lot of people are still blowing it. We think there's a silver bullet. Oh, if we can just get this lawsuit in, oh, we'll win. Or if we can just get this piece of evidence in front of the people, or if we can just do this, or we can just do that. Wrong. There's no silver bullet. There's really only one solution. We've got to engage the war. So in this war, we need to think of each state, county, or city like a game of chess. We need to make deliberate, informed, strategic choices. We're not just going to pick up our rifles and run at the enemy. No, we're going to form a war council, like I described with the 7 steps. Step 1 in the 7 steps is to get connected. And thank goodness for Cause of America. I was with Mike, and when we set up Cause of America at the beginning, I was very excited about it. I still remain excited about it. It's grown into an organization that's provided wonderful infrastructure around the country. It's super important to get connected, guys. Why? Because you need to learn all the wisdom that we've learned from around the country. You don't want to start over. You're not just going to run into war with no skills. This is my father. He says, he taught me everything I knew about fly fishing. He says, a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man mistakes of others. So that's why you need to be connected, because you need to learn wisdom from everybody else that's been in this movement. You're not going to do it by yourself. We need to work together. Second reason you need to get connected is because you need national figures to help accelerate your local movement. Karen Taylor was talking about at the beginning when I came out and for their first event out there, we raised a good chunk of change. There's just something about human nature. You need to bring in outside talent. I just was noticing Patty Plum's post today. Dave Clements went up there, and she says it's amazing when you bring in an outside guy, it just galvanizes the public around him. Well, the problem with you local people is you're just the local schmucks. You know, you're the local person. If you think as a local person alone that you're going to be able to generate a movement, it's very difficult. You got to bring in the outside people. I don't like to insult people. I just remind them, even Jesus had trouble with that when he went home to Nazareth. How did that work out for him? No, the reason you need to get connected is because it brings national resources to bear. So step one was get connected. Step two, you got to form your war council. Form your team. There are a lot of battlefronts, and you're going to have to decide which battlefront you're going to engage in. You need a team to do that. It's too much work in strategy. The general doesn't just sit back there in his office and tell the army what to do. He has a whole team, a whole infrastructure around, and then you decide how to fight the war. And I love what Einstein says. He says the strength of the Constitution lies entirely in the determination of each citizen to defend it. Only if every single citizen feels duty-bound to do his share in this defense are the constitutional rights secure. So you're going to have to inspire your local people with the Constitution. You're going to have to try to get your citizens to wake up and engage the Constitution and defend it. Step three, you got to form a local plan. Notice I didn't say you're going to form a lawsuit. Notice I didn't say you're going to write your legislator. Notice I didn't say you're going to go to Washington, D.C. and pro se. No, you're going to make a local plan. Because we're winning this battle, not from the top down. We tried that at the first. The solution is from the bottom up, from your local community to your county to your state to your national. The solution is bottom up. I've read a lot of books on this. I like what Colonel John Mills says, Army Intelligence. He says, secure your county and the nation will follow. Or what does General Flynn say? Local action gives you national impact. Now, these are guys who are experts at taking over other countries. They know how to change countries and cultures. And they don't say, write your legislator, call your legislator. No, they say local action, national impact. And that's basically how fifth generation warfare works. And we need to use some of those tactics ourselves. Or Tony Shoup, an amazing super mom from Pennsylvania. She taught me education is key. You need to teach people the Constitution, but the fix is local. Where would we be without our super moms? That's another huge lesson I've learned in the last several years. 9 out of 10 people in the election integrity movement are moms. And why? They're awake. How did they wake up? Well, because of the disaster in 2020, not just with the election, with COVID. A lot of those super moms saw what their kids were learning in the schools. It woke them up. The pain level got high, so they woke up. Well, with the elections, the pain is not too high right now. People seem to be happy, at least at the top. That's not good. We need to point out there's been a lot of other fraud down at the lower levels too. So anyway, I love our super moms. One of my favorite super moms is Chris Ann Hall. She's an amazing speaker. She's the one who taught me about sovereign duty, but also she has really good shovel-ready strategies for you. If you read this book, it's just really good grassroots stuff. She has a movie, Non-Compliant, what you can do individually and how to employ the sheriff. So we the people empower the national level. A lot of times people think, we got to go to the legislature and fix it that way. Wrong. Politicians don't start parades. They join them. You need to start the parade at your local level, and that's what empowers the legislature to accomplish what they do. Now, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to choose the right battlefront. You're going to have to choose, where you're going to work on your city officials, your schools, your churches. Where are you going to focus your effort? And it's super important that you choose wisely. Too many people are doing things that don't have any net effect. You have to think about the bigger picture and where you're going. A lot of people were trying to affect change nationally. Wrong. Your power, the most power you have is local. You have the least amount of power up there. So you should focus your war effort where you have the most effect. You need to choose the right battles. You need to choose the right strategies. You got to choose wisely. You got to choose the right battlefields, warriors, tactics, the whole 9 yards. And here's a new principle that I think a lot of you haven't thought of before. It's right out of Sun Tzu. In all fighting, the direct method may be used for joining battle, but indirect methods will be needed in order to secure victory. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I want you to realize a lot of times the mistake we're making is we attack immediately, like it would be like attacking Berlin on the first day. We need to attack all the surrounding communities. We need to have indirect methods, and I'm going to talk about that a little more. A lot of people want to do lawsuits. They're too slow. Legislation, too slow. We're in a war. We don't have time for those things. They drag on for, EIPCA, Election Integrity Project of California. They have a really good lawsuit. They've been working on it for years now. And the courts just agreed they're going to hear it. Okay, where are we going? Are we going to get anything out of that? No, we're in a war. We don't have time to wait for that. The things that are faster are the things where you have the power. Your city council, your school board, your county supervisors, local recalls, citizen audits. That's where you have the power. That's where you need to engage. You're not wasting your time. Plus, when you're doing lawsuits and legislation, you're fighting in their battlefield. It's like you're in a war and you're running into their encampments where they're all dug in and all ready for you. That's a mistake. We should not be fighting them in their battlefields. Another thing is that any tactics like that, they take too long. It violates one of Volinsky's rules for radicals. Number 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. And so we lose motivation. We're not going to win this with evidence. We're not going to win it with a lawsuit. We're not going to win it with new legislation. We're going to win it when the people are awake and engaging their civil responsibilities. So to think that we're going to win with a long-term tactic, we're going to lose the movement. We're not going to gain. So back to Sun Tzu again. The direct and the indirect lead on to each other in turn. It's like moving in a circle. I'm quoting him. You never come to an end. Who can exhaust the possibilities of their combination? This is our hope, my friend. This is our hope. When we affect local change, it goes up the ladder and causes things to happen there that come back, and we can amplify this circle. That is our hope, and that is the strategy we need to do. We don't start at the legislature, we start at home, and it causes a domino effect that then feeds back, and we got that circle going. It's a very powerful idea. And one more quote for him. Sorry, I just love this guy. In battle, there are not more than 2 methods of attack. There are 2 ways of attacking, the direct and the indirect. Yet these 2 in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. So a lot of times I'm with people in communities, and they say, "Oh, Dr. Frank, what can we do? They run our elections. We don't have a majority of the city councils. There's nothing we can do, Dr. Frank." Are you kidding? There's an endless series of things you can do. You just have to form a law. You have to think of it like a war. You have to form your war council, and you have to figure out what strategies you can do. Sometimes you're going to fight your war like a guerrilla war. Sometimes you're going to fight it like an all-out and out war, public war. But there's always things you can do. And a lot of times they're indirect. I just want to give you an example or 2 of that. You need to think strategically. So there's this wonderful book. It's called Beautiful Trouble. It's got like 100 examples of really cool things you can do to affect change in your community. And each one of those things you win gives you momentum to win more. And so those tactics vary city by city, county by state. A lot of times people say, "What do we do next, Dr. Frank?" My question, they're asking me a question, but my answer is a question. They'll say, "What do we do, Dr. Frank?" And I'll say, "Tell me about your city." We don't have to reinvent the wheel, guys. People have been leading revolutions for millennia. They have all kinds of strategies. You start local, you figure out what's going on, and you act accordingly. And I got a good quote on that later, too. But anyway, I just want to give you a simple example. It was such a funny example. I just read it in this book, Blueprint for Revolution. This guy's started 3 revolutions in the world, and he talks about dog crap. It's the funniest thing. He talks about Harvey Milk in San Francisco. And he's a gay man, and he was trying to make gay lifestyles normal in San Francisco. And so originally he was campaigning on that and everything, and losing everything. And Popovich says the fastest way to lose an election, the fastest way to fail in your movement, is to go for your real objective at first. Don't do that. And this is going back to Sun Tzu. You want to use an indirect. And so he brings up this example of dog crap. So Milk is on television, and he's being interviewed during one of his campaigns, and he accidentally steps in dog crap that's on the street there, and he says, "I'll tell you what, if you guys elect me, I'm going to clean this problem up." And guess what? He gets elected because that's a common issue that everybody can relate to. Nobody likes walking down the street and stepping in dog crap. So that issue is not his main issue, but it enabled him to then normalize his long-term goals. So you see where I'm going with this? There are all these little tactics that we can use to regain control of our elections, but we don't necessarily go for elections right out of the gate. And that's such a good story. It was just such a good example. So we have short-term goals, and the answer to what are your short-term goals? What do you have in your community? Dr. Frank, what do we do next? Tell me about your community. What do the people get behind? Because as soon as you win, people like a winner, and they'll follow a winner. So we're building a movement. Remember, we're not trying to fix everything at once. We're trying to build a movement We're trying to wake the public up. We're trying to get them to re-engage their responsibilities. And of course, we have the longer term goals. One of my longer term goals is to take back our elections and then restore our republic. What's so cool is in every one of these cases when I'm working with communities, say, what do we do next? Let's see what Sun Tzu says. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands. But, I love this, the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. So here we are, for example, in Shasta County. They put into our hands the perfect opportunity for us to defeat their elections because they screwed up their own elections so beautifully. So you see where I'm going. Your strategy isn't just, it's not going to be the same in every county. It depends what has the enemy given you, what opportunities has the enemy given you so you can win the war. And another really important rule, never go outside the expertise of your own people. Wherever possible, go outside the experience of the enemy. And this has really been a powerful thing for me because I'm helping citizens audit their elections right now. How? They now know how to audit voter rolls. They know them even better than the county officials. It's awesome. So we're outside of their experience, and we just keep catching them flat-footed. What do you mean you just added 100 people to the voter rolls who are not legal citizens? Boom! You catch them right there. It's beautiful. So these tactics, these rules, these books are feeding a lot of tactics, and we're learning a lot of them just by trial and error. But it's nice to see them converted. People say, "Oh, we got to do recounts." Nah, don't waste your time with recounts. I think I've covered that enough time. Only do recounts when it's called for. And forgive me for grabbing my little thing here. I always tell people, doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. So same with the ballots. Doesn't matter how many times you count the ballots, unless you have a reason. There has to be a good reason why you need to count the ballots, not just because you think you're going to find fraud that way, because you're not, because too many of the ballots are counterfeit. This goes back to, I was talking to somebody the other day, one of the teams. Oh, Dr. Frank, we're chasing ballots because we don't know what else to do. Oh, wrong answer. Sun Tzu, move not unless you see an advantage. Use not your troops unless there's something to be gained. Fight not unless the position is critical. So if you get your war council together and you don't know what to do, don't just do something because you've got to do something. You're going to work on it until you find what strategies are the best ones to do. Of course, we want to reform our state legislatures, and I've shown you how bad shape they are. I've done one for every state. Here's Wisconsin, Kansas. Look at how unconstitutional their legislature is, or West Virginia, who voted more for Trump as a percentage than a lot of other states. Look how non-constitutional their legislature is. Our legislatures need massive reform. Look at Wyoming, the most MAGA state in the country. Look how unconstitutional their state is. We got our work cut out for us, friends. Think you're going to reform the Congress? Nah, let's leave that one for President Trump and the Doge team. What do you think? They're in there. They're going to do a lot, I think. So I think we've got multiple battlefronts going here. Let's let them do their battlefront at the national level. Let's do ours at the local level because we're empowering them by doing so. I love a guy. His name is Glenn Morgan up in Washington. He says a mountain of corruption survives in a sea of incompetence. Why is our elections full of incompetence? Because we're not running them. We're letting other people do it. Why is our government full of corruption? Because it's full of incompetence. So I like it that's what the Doge is going to be dealing with is the incompetence, and that's a strong point forward. Now, how can you help them out at the federal level? Through your party. You have local party in your local power through your party, and a lot of people still don't even realize it. Even though Dan Schultz has been going around the country teaching the precinct strategy, it's a big deal. Everybody needs to do that. Let me just wrap up the talk with this, and I'll take some questions. You remember when David went to the battlefield? He didn't go there to fight Goliath. He went there to check on his brothers, and what he discovered is this big oaf out in the middle of the field, insulting their God, insulting their nation. So he goes to his brothers and he says, we got to deal with this problem. His brothers said, go back to the sheep. Don't get involved. Don't engage. Well, he didn't listen to him. He stepped up. He engaged. He slew Goliath, cut off his head with a sword. And then the Bible says, after he slew Goliath, then The children of Israel rose up and chased the Philistines out of the land. The problem wasn't Goliath. The problem was the children of Israel were apathetic. The problem is the children of Israel were hiding in the hills. It took a leader. It took somebody to step up. I want your team to be that leader. I want your team to be the David in your community that wakes them up and slays the Goliath. The elephant in the room has to be dealt with. David didn't argue with the people that were hiding in the hills. He went out and dealt with the elephant in the room. And the elephant in our room is our elections. Until we fix elections, everything else is downstream from that. We're not going to be able to reform our Congress. We're not going to be able to reform our legislatures. We're not going to be able to reform our city councils. We're not going to be able to reform our schools. We have to fix our elections. That is the elephant in the room. And once we fix that, then I think we affect reform top to bottom. So here's my offer to you, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. My offer to you is you build a local team and we'll coach you. There, I gave you my email address. Feel free to send me an email. I got people that help me schedule. I don't charge for my help, and I'm happy to help. And of course, Cause America, get signed up with them. They provide amazing infrastructure. Karen Taylor just came on, and she knows I'm coming to the end of my talk. You need to establish a beachhead in your community. That's what you need. Don't think about, oh, we got to take the federal. No, that's the wrong. That's like saying we got to take Berlin the first day. Establish a beachhead in your community, and then that empowers our movement. And I'll make you this promise: if you build it, I will come. I don't charge for that.